or the message that was the message given in the 1991 policy, and the process of deregularization and liberalization and simplifying. In that also, our objective of the government of India was to transition into a globally oriented, vibrant economy and acceleration of India's exports through restructuring and revamping of various export promotion schemes. And there was a wide-ranging simplification procedure and streamlining procedures. And the expiry of the second policy in 2004, another 5-year policy was named, and there was a difference in nomenclature from the EXIM policy. The name was changed into the foreign trade policy. So the nomenclature was also changed to foreign trade policy in 2004-9, and that ambition was to double the percentage of the India's share in the global merchandise and trade in the next 5 years. Again, in 2009-14, the fourth policy, and that too, especially when the 2009-14, you may be remembering that there was a global recession in the 2008, even though the policy comes with a tremendous or a backdrop of a remarkable trade performance and subsequently the contagion effect of the global crisis. So in 2008, the main object of the policy was to arrest and reverse the declining trend of the export due to the contagion or the badly hit recession in the developed world. Then the last fifth policy, 15-20, was more into some towards, more on emphasis was on improving ease of doing business. And also there are several initiatives, provisions, and procedures to provide a stable and sustainable environment for the foreign trade in both merchandise and the services. And we all know that it was to expire in 2020 with the various factors, including the pandemic that resulted extensions several times. And at last, the government of India introduced the Foreign Trade Policy 2023 on 31st March 2023. So we today discuss on this subject, and we are having a very eminent personality, Mr. Sudhakar Kasture, a leading consultant and a consultant on international trade and a trainer. And he is also a mentor of the EXIM Institute, and which already provides, advanced certificate program on international trade. He is a trainer, speaker on various matters related to SEZ or foreign trade policy, foreign trade agreements, free trade zones, and various aspects, especially with regard to the international trade. And he is also closely associated with the several MNCs, private limited, public limited, and also various sectors in resolving or as an advisor and advisory team. And also we are happy to also inform that he is also our regular trainer and a faculty in FEDE. So again, that clause of the disclaimer of the Chatham House rules prevail for this discussion, and we are looking forward to Mr. Kasture, and welcome, sir, to this program. As you may be knowing that every month we conduct a discussion series. For the last 3 series, we conducted on FEMA and also on the capital account transactions, and representative from the controller himself was present on these programs, on the last 3 programs. So being the hot talk now is on the foreign trade policy, we were of the opinion that you are the best suited person to have a discussions today. Sir, welcome to this monthly discussion, sir. And we all wait, all are the bankers mostly, and we all wait to understand from the bank's point of view what you have for the foreign trade policy to offer for us. Welcome, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Srinivas. Good afternoon, all friends. So today we'll be talking about, and the agenda that I have today is first to analyze the impact on actual trade, then looking at the new schemes, district hubs, e-commerce, etc. To understand continued schemes, what is the impact and what is the future? How do we look into grasping digital transformation and FTP systems? So roughly, this is what I have thought of covering. Let me also make it very clear that I knew who are the people listening to this. So the entire focus of this presentation is more from a banker's perspective. I'm not going to talk about how to apply for licenses, what are the procedures related to that, because you're not going to do that. But whatever is most relevant for you, that I will definitely discuss. So the first part, policy has been announced on 31st March. And the change from the previous ones, previous policies used to have a definite time period. Most of them were for a period of 5 years. This policy makes a complete change. And this policy says, this policy does not have a fixed duration. And DGFT has been empowered to make the amendments as and when required. So one good thing about this is that any situation that we need to handle, we need a solution. The way for conducting such amendments is open. The second aspect that could be little on the other side is that policies can change. You cannot take it for granted that they'll continue for a certain period in the same manner. The primary reason for this is very, very simple. And that reason is that we are in a technology era. Things are changing pretty fast. The global scenario is pretty uncertain. The changes are happening very rapidly. And therefore, it is something that one has to look into carefully. The third thing, particularly of this policy, are new initiatives. They are commonly known as district hubs, focus on MSME and e-commerce. This is a very interesting area and truly making a change in terms of implementation. And all these schemes, district hubs, e-commerce, etc., would be a step towards developing banking business at the district level. So that is one good news for everyone that one has to look into. We will see that how this practically works and what are the steps that are expected to be taken in this. And the most important point that I would like to tell you, that any policy, by and large, when we look at it, we always thought it is more a matter of regulation. But if you ask me, and I've been studying policies for 45 years now, my observation is policy is practically a future direction. Because the Department of DGFT works under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And Ministry of Commerce and Industry seriously looks into development of international trade. So what are the steps necessary for development of international trade, both in terms of imports and exports? And it has directly a great correlation with activities carried out under the system of RBI, that is monitoring of foreign exchange, management of foreign exchange, because exports are connected to inward remittance, imports are connected to outward remittance. And given the scenario that is happening today, there are a lot of things that are being talked about: the political situation, geopolitical aspects, commercial aspects, China +1 policy. So the policy primarily aims at giving a direction for the future. That point has to be understood critically. We should not look at it purely from a regulation point of view. We have to look at a number of other things. And very simple example to narrate is when we changed FERA to FEMA. FERA was pretty easy in a sense that there are regulations, definite regulations available, something you cannot decide. The only option available to you is go back to the Reserve Bank of India, seek for clarification. The moment we convert into management, then the responsibility is passed on to the banks. In the same manner, when we talk of Foreign Exchange Development and Regulation Act, and policies created thereunder, then it is important that we must also contribute to development. And this development has become very, very important in the current scenario. Why? I will tell you with actual trade statistics. The official figures available from the authorized source, that is DGCIS and Ministry of Commerce, if you look at them, and if we don't take into account the services exports, then one point to understand, our exports in 22-23 have touched 447 billion, which is the highest figure so far in the history. Simultaneously, our imports have touched also a very high figure. It is $714 billion. What does this practically mean? It gives us a merchandise trade deficit of 266 billion. Compared to the last year, it is pretty high. And even if you consider all services together and goods and services put together, our trade balance is still at the deficit of $122 billion, which is sufficiently high compared to $83 billion of the earlier year. So the only option is that we need to reduce this trade deficit. So we must increase our exports in services. We must increase our export in goods. And the policy has already given the targeted figures that we would like to have by 2030. Merchandise goods export by 1,000 billion and services export by 1,000 billion. So $2 trillion is our estimated dream, estimated aim that we would like to achieve by 2030. Now, jumping from 447 to 1,000 and jumping from 322 to 1,000 is quite a humongous task. So we must look at all those possibilities. Where can we increase our exports? And this is critically important. I will give you different kind of analysis. And it's very interesting to note how things, if you study the exports by way of chapters, chapters simply in customs terminology, chapter is a commodity. So there are different kind of chapters. There are total 98 chapters covered under the customs tariff, where we look at the figures. And you will find it very interesting. I have calculated it in exact terminology. So there are $10 billion and above, 9 chapters. 1 to 10 billion, 40 chapters. 0.5 to 1, 12 chapters. 0.1 to 0.5, 21 chapters. Less than 0.1, 16 chapters. If you convert them in rupees, and if we take average exchange rate as 80, then the first category is 80,000 crores and above. How many categories are there? 9 categories. Which are these 9 categories? Chapter 10, cereals. Chapter 27, petroleum products. Chapter 29, chemicals. Chapter 30, pharmaceuticals. Chapter 71, gold, silver, and jewelry. Chapter 72, iron and steel. Chapter 84, mechanical engineering. Chapter 85, electrical engineering goods. And Chapter 87, automobiles. Only these 9 chapters cover 63.23% of our total exports. Another 40 chapters where most of our textiles come into picture, starting from chapter 52 to 63. 40 chapters put together is 134.66. And then you look at all the other chapters put together for the period April-February, where figures are available, audited figures are available from DGCIS. The export 63.23% in 9 chapters, 32.91% in 40 chapters. All other chapters, almost 50, is within a bracket of 4%. This is very serious to understand. That means our exports are good in certain sectors. Our exports are moderate in certain sectors. But in certain sectors, our exports are so low that really nobody is looking forward. And therefore, we need to expand the base of exports. That is one lesson we need to learn from this. The second aspect is imports. In a similar manner, 11 chapters come under the first category. $10 billion and above. Which are these 11 chapters? Chapter 15, edible oils. Chapter 27, petroleum products. Chapter 28 and 29, inorganic and organic chemicals. Chapter 31, fertilizers. Chapter 39, plastics. 71, gold, silver, jewelry. 72, iron and steel. 84, 85, mechanical and electrical equipments and machineries. And chapter 90, medical devices. But what is the percentage of import? Percentage of import is 82.30. Now understand these categories, some of them are critically essential. For example, edible oil is essential, petroleum products are essential, fertilizer is essential. You cannot avoid that. Medical devices is essential. Chapter 84 and 85, electrical and mechanical machineries also are important for imports. So are we expecting to reduce our imports drastically? Answer is no. There are other 28 chapters where our imports are 94 billion. And again, the same story, 18, 23 and 18 chapters put together account for hardly 4%. So again, our exports are not diversified, our imports are not diversified. This point has to be understood by everyone. Unless until we provide a system for development of exports, then only it is possible to reduce imports and reduce the trade deficit. Because if you are importing essential commodities, you cannot simply stop importing them. Edible oils are required, fertilizers are required. You can't help it. Petroleum products are required, chemicals are required. These are essentials. You cannot say, I will not import them. You may reduce something. And that gives us a very interesting aspect that we need to understand how things will grow in future. And all of us have to concentrate. Export has to be our national priority. Because if more than 50 chapters are accounting for hardly 5%, less than 5% of our total exports, then our exports are not diversified. This is the point. First has to be understood when we look at foreign trade policy as a direction for future. Now let us look at. There are 4 approaches for this particular policy. First, we are moving away from incentives to remission. Clearly understood. Government has very frankly said, no further incentivization. There are reasons for it. We are member of WTO. As a WTO member, we are governed by the articles and agreements entered with WTO. And one of the agreement has a sub-agreement called ASCM, Anti-Subsidy and Countervailing Measures, which says, if you have acquired per capita income beyond $1,000 for a continuous period of 3 years, such country cannot give export-based incentives. We crossed that in 13, 14, and 15. As a net result, technically we cannot give. We were looking for getting some grace period on that. We made applications way back in 2012. But then there was a complaint filed against us by US in 2018. And as a result of that, incentivization has come to an end. Today, schemes like MEIS, Merchandise Export Scheme, and schemes like SEIS, Service Export Scheme, were incentivized to the extent of 2% to 7%. That has been discontinued. And government has clearly made this, that sorry, we will not be able to give you any kind of incentivization. Whatever we are going to talk about is only remission of indirect taxes. Because the principle of export is we export goods and services, we do not export taxes. So that is compliant. The second part this policy is going to talk about is export promotion through collaboration. It is always understood right from the beginning that export-import is a baby of the central government. Now government says, make this a collaborative effort. What is meant by collaborative effort? Exporters will contribute, states will contribute, districts will contribute, Indian missions will contribute. Indian missions will contribute to growth of export, making bilateral and multilateral relationships good. Help the Indian exporters to get more market intelligence through embassies of India, consulates of India in other countries. Exporters should come out, they should try and increase their methodology of increasing exports. States should have arrangement for participating in export, developing export infrastructure, marketing support, buyer-seller meets. And districts. All these 720 districts, the products have been identified, which are originating from that district. So how to increase export from those particular districts? So the focus is on collaborative efforts. That is part number 2. Part number 3 is ease of doing business, reduction in transaction cost and technology interface. Most of the operations today, whether it is shipping, whether it is GST, whether it is indirect taxation customs, whether it is DGFT, whether it is insurance company, everything is becoming online. And government has come out with a scheme called faceless and paperless assessment of imports and exports. So getting the entire industry acquainted with the technological changes that are taking place, that's the third portion. And the fourth portion is e-commerce. Very great area. E-commerce is expected to touch $8,000 billion again by 2030. And possibility of India's export growth purely in e-commerce is close to $250 billion to $300 billion. $8,000 billion, if you look at the world percentage, is almost 33% of total turnover of the world, $24,000 billion. So this is a great potential. All of us have already accepted e-commerce as buyers. I'm 100% sure if I ask you a question that how many of you buy online, everybody will say I buy online, so that's not a problem. You are aware of the e-commerce transaction. Now, utilizing these platforms and developing district for this, so 2 initiatives have been taken. E-commerce, one aspect. Second aspect is district hubs. And third aspect is export through post. So we are extending this facility. Currently, government has identified 122 district post offices across India, which is likely to be extended to 720 districts once all the paperwork and all the other streamlining technologies are put in place. This is bound to happen. So these are new initiatives. Then there is a scheme called SCOMET, which are items of dual use. One use is industrial use, second use is nuclear use. So monitoring of that, a separate chapter has been created. So in a nutshell, this is the approach of the policy. As I said, it is not talking only about licensing and things like that. It is primarily saying that this is what we want to achieve. Ease of doing business. Some small changes have been made. Since the process of licensing is now online, most of the authorizations that are issued under various export promotion schemes, the government is now saying that we will issue it within 1 day. The program will be completely online. So that's a very good step and very much appreciated. Only one has to make sure that the people who are making applications, they are perfect. Applications are filed properly. Then the software system itself will take care, and you will be able to see that yes, on your computer screen, you'll be able to see that your authorization has been issued. And then you can take a printout and that will be transferred to customs. So this is all, it will go through very, very smoothly. Hopefully, whatever the technical glitches that are there, they'll also get sorted out. The second thing they have done is a reduction in fees to a substantial extent for the MSME sector. There is a reason given for this. MSME account for 55 to 60% who are beneficiaries of such schemes. And the fees are drastically reduced. This chart will show you, if you are applying for authorization, where the CIF value or duty saved value is up to 1 crore. Fee for non-SME is rupee 1 per 1,000. For SME sector, it is only 100 rupees. If you are applying for authorization between 1 crore to 10 crores, the fee is only 5,000. The maximum fee applicable in licensing system is 1 lakh of rupees per authorization, irrespective of the value, which is for non-MSME sector. For MSME sector, it is only 5,000 rupees. So there is a direct saving of 95,000 rupees or 95% in fees. And that is a great booster for MSME people to take advantage of these schemes. Similarly, the extension periods, the extension money, the new fees considerably reduced, where fee was in excess of 30 lakhs, 10,000 fixed. So you can imagine that it makes a lot of change in terms of transaction cost, particularly for MSME. Idea is to encourage them and see what best they can do, what best they can look into, and how to increase exports in this particular area. So these are some critical aspects that needs to be seen. Now let us look at practical changes in FTP. The new structure, there used to be 9 chapters, now there are 11 chapters. Chapter number 1, legal framework and trade facilitation. Then general provisions regarding imports and exports. A new chapter has been created, chapter 3, developing district as export hub. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they continued as it is. They were always there. Duty exemption, remission scheme, EPCG scheme, EOU scheme, deemed export, quality complaints and trade disputes. Then a new chapter has been created, promoting cross-border trade in digital economy. So focusing on e-commerce export. A separate chapter has been created for SCOMET. These are, as I said, items of dual use. And the definitions, they are covered under chapter 11. So by and large, 3 more chapters have been added. The policy has been rationalized to that extent. And some major changes have taken place. I'll be discussing that exactly. All these discussions, as I said, are towards keeping in mind that people who are listening to these are bankers. So I'm not going to talk about how to make an application. No, we will talk about what matters to the bankers. This we have already seen, legal framework that no time limit specified, amendments are possible. Transitional arrangements, very clear clarity. Whenever government brings out a policy change of a particular item, whether it is change in HS code, whether it is change in restricted category or prohibited category or freely permissible category, or a product is brought under BIS standards, whatever may be the situation, the change will be applicable prospectively. And what is that prospective change? From the date of notification. So there is absolute clarity from which date the change would be applicable. And then they have also provided, unless otherwise provided for. So if there is some change which is made retrospectively, the notification will clearly say so. If nothing is said, then every change carried out is primarily a prospective change. There is a National Committee on Trade Facilitation, which is formed under para 1.06 of the policy, and definite tasks are given to this committee, which is improvement in ease of doing business through reduction in transaction cost and time, reduction in cargo release time, paperless regulatory environment, transparent and predictable legal regime, improved investment climate through better infrastructure. So a generic view has been taken, as I said, state has to participate, central government has to participate, agencies have to participate. So creation of trade facilitation, this is more also with regard to a new agreement entered in WTO in 2017, that is called Trade Facilitation Agreement. So this committee has been created to look at that. Para 1.12, 13, 14, 15, 17. If you look at these paras, you will find that these are all information related to moving paper documentation to electronic documentation through a EDI system. So issue of import-export code online, RCMC online, registration certificate related processes online, certificate of origin online, electronic record of export proceeds through EBRC and EDPMS again online. The focus of the government is faceless and paperless. So therefore, no question of going somewhere and filing the papers. Instead, you do that using a digital signature for the purpose of authenticity, and applications have to be filed. This gives a large leverage because when application is to be filed online, then you can file it 12 o'clock in the night also. If you have to submit the document, then the office will physically say that, okay, my counter is open, let's say from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. Only during that time, I will accept the documents. If you cannot submit, your submission will go exactly 24 hours later. You cannot file an application on Saturday or on Sunday. International trade requires timely deliveries, expeditious decision-making. And this is a great move that this will help. Because now you can file the application sitting anywhere. There is no need of office, your own office or government office to be open. As long as you have the digital signature, you have the knowledge how to file the application. This will really help. Para 1.18 talks about IT initiatives. You should go through that. There is a help desk facility. And most importantly, all the related data, whether export or imports, is available on the DGCI's website. So anybody who wants to know what is the commodity trend, etc., everything can be seen from this particular aspect. Whatever trade facilitation is done at customs is listed in para 1.21. And the program, authorized operator economic program. This is something authorized economic operator called, commonly known as AEO, is a authentication certification granted by government on behalf of the World Customs Organization that this industry, this particular company is compliant with safety standards. So security and safety standards, whatever is required, that is followed at this particular end. So that also has been covered under para 1.22. Status holder certificate, which is recognition for the exporters. Please remember, AO is international recognition, internationally accepted. Status holder certification is Indian recognition. Again, there is a big change in this. The figures are reduced. Earlier, to get 2-star export house, you must have export of $25 million, cumulative export for last 3+ current year. Now that figure is reduced to 15. 3-star, 100 to 50. 4-star, 500 to 200. And 5-star, 2,000 to 800. So there is drastic reduction, and this will give status to number of people. Again, this will encourage MSME people. Of course, there is no additional financial benefit because incentivization is done away with. The only benefit available to star export houses is exemption from bank guarantee. So otherwise, it is all procedural benefits. But yes, it gives you a sort of recognition by Government of India, and that will improve your image in external market. That is one reason why this has been done. Suddenly you will find, because the drastic reduction has come in the last category. If you take $2,000 million, that is equivalent to 80 rupees exchange rate. If you take it, is about 16,000 crores exports in last 3 years. And in this particular case, suddenly that has become from 2,000 to 800. So you will find a lot of new 5-star export houses would be registered. Merchanting trade under Chapter 2. Chapter 2 normally deals with general provision, country restrictions, product restrictions, import of samples, export of samples, promotional activities, a number of things applicable generically. Now, one specific change that is going to impact the banking, and not impact as such because this is going on, the merchanting trade, where you are buying goods from country A and selling it to country B. The shipment is directly going. Let me give you an example. A person from US gives you an order to an Indian exporter Indian exporter procures this material from Malaysia. And the US fellow says that, okay, I am giving you this order, but you have to deliver the goods to Argentina. So material will directly go from Malaysia to Argentina. He will raise documentation on Indian exporter. Indian exporter will raise documentation on US importer. US importer will interact with the consignee in Argentina, and clearance will take place at Argentina. So there is a ship to bill to model that works in merchanting trade. And merchanting trade is covered under RBI guidelines. You can see these details in Master Direction on Import of Goods. Elaborate instructions have been given, but there was no legal provision made in policy. So now they have made a legal provision in this particular policy, and it very clearly states that involving an intermediary, Indian intermediary is allowed subject to compliance with RBI guidelines, except for goods or items in the Convention of International Trade of Endangered Species that you are not supposed to. Endangered species. Now, for example, you cannot commercially export a cheetah or elephant or something like this, or even items like peacock feathers, because they come under the CITES Regulation International Convention, and SCOMET list, the dual use items. So barring these two, normally the items which are allowed to be imported or exported will get covered under this category. So this has been a legal provision which was absent in the foreign trade policy so far, now has been created. So if any change in the system is required by the exporter, now he can approach the DGFT, and DGFT can recommend that, the ministry can recommend that to RBI, and accordingly the RBI notifications can be amended. You must be aware of this. RBI has two master direction, one for export of goods and services, second for import of goods and services. And this was needed as a legal provision. So that has been done over here. This will also indirectly help that if you have good marketing network, you can procure goods at a cheaper price from country A and export with your margins at country B. That will automatically generate certain amount of additional earning for India, and that is a welcome step. Developing district as export hubs. What government has done under this is that they have identified products from various districts. There are 720 districts across India. They have identified products from these districts, and there is a mechanism that we should try to export these goods. Currently, export, normally anybody you ask, you want to do export, so he believes that he has to be either in a port city, seaport, or in a city, airport, from where he can have direct access. Then we believe in intermediaries, so we look at for people who would be asking things like that, and then finally going into this area. There is no arrangement of export or import at the district level, but there are products at district level. Let me give you one example from Nasik. In a span of 20 days, normally every year this span is roughly 1 month, grapes are exported from Nasik. These grapes, you will not believe, are close to 8,000 containers. This year, because of the climatic problems, the exports have come down. Instead of 1.05 lakh tons, they have come down to 90,000 tons. So there is a reduction, and the time period is also reduced. This is primarily during this period, March-April period, it is exported to Europe. So similarly, from same Nasir district, some flowers developed by the agricultural people have been exported to Netherlands. So these are new areas coming up where technology can help, accessibility can help. And as a net result, there is a need for development of an action plan from each district. So this chapter explains you number of areas. For example, what will be the district export action plan, how state government and union territories will contribute to these efforts, The nodal agency would be regional office of DGFT. There will be online monitoring of this district export action plan. Export promotion activities will be decided at each district. Implementation of district export action plan will be decided. There will be help from Chamber of Commerce in that particular district, other operative agencies in that particular district. So, one point I would like to tell all the bankers that there is a great scope for increasing business in each district, particularly for exports. So each one must study chapter 3 in details. This is at the formative stage. Probably the whole establishment of structure will take another 6 months. Before that, you must be completely ready so that you would be able to understand how to expand business. And if there is no foreign exchange authorized dealers branch in that particular district, but you see the potential of growing, then yes, this is a next move that bankers should adopt, that one should go forward and look into this very, very clearly. So this is one very good initiative. But of course, at the initial stage, the framework is ready, the structure is ready. Now implementation expected to be taking place here onwards. All the export promotion schemes, primarily for indirect tax management, whether it is duty exemption scheme, EPCG scheme, EOU scheme, deemed export schemes, they all have been continued with smaller amendments. By and large, the original structure remains the same. There was only one issue whether IGST exemption will be continued or not, but IGST exemption has also been continued. All the notifications from customs have been issued on 1st of April 2023, and the schemes are continuing. So there is no basic change in all these schemes. They will continue as it is. Government has introduced one more scheme called RODTP, because the principle of export is we export goods and services, not taxes. So all taxes have to be refunded. Now there are three kinds of taxes. First is custom duty, which is refunded by way of drawback. Second is GST, which is where exports are treated as zero rated. So you can export the goods using LUT, legal undertaking, without paying the GST, or where you pay the GST, you will get cash refund from the government. So these two are taken care of. But still there are certain taxes which are not subsumed in GST. For example, electricity duty is not subsumed in GST. Mandi tax is not subsumed in GST. Diesel petrol taxes which are required for transportation of goods is not subsumed in GST. So that increases the cost of the goods. For that, a new scheme has been introduced, which is known as RODTP. Similar version is introduced for textile product, which is known as ROSCTL. Both the schemes aim at refunding you taxes. The rates of these are anywhere between say 0.5% to about, on an average, about 2%. And this money is given back to the exporters. The entire mechanism introduced under the policy in chapter 4, but implemented by customs. So this is more or less similar to duty drawback scheme, the way drawback is credited. Similarly, RODTP benefit in the form of a scrip is generated by the exporter and can be utilized for payment of customs duty. Again, as far as bankers are concerned, this has to be ultimately correlated with EDPMS, because RODTP, like drawback, is given to you without waiting for the realization. So wherever the realization comes during the prescribed period of 9 months, then that has to be seen and worked on, and accordingly it needs to be delivered. So that is how it is done under this particular scheme. So monitoring is done with the help of EBRCs, and that is what bankers are connected with this. Promoting cross-border trade in digital economy, same story. Since e-commerce transactions are increasing left, right, and center across the globe, a new chapter has been created. They have created e-commerce export hubs. And please remember, this is not only for export of goods, but also for export of services. And government is planning to have a platform for all this. Again, this is at the initial stage. The framework has been created, as you can see. So architect rendering services to a country called Netherlands gets money. This money is to be treated as e-commerce export of services, though physical delivery is not taking place. And you are well aware how Amazon or Walmart operates in India, how Alibaba operates in India. Similarly, government is trying to create one platform. And for educating people, you require hand-holding and outreach. So wherever e-commerce transaction, and this is a big business because as I said, we are expecting to touch about 300 billion. If that is the case, then in that case, please remember one small thing that we need to understand it very, very carefully. And that small thing is we can expand the business from different levels. Handicrafts, nutraceuticals. These products can be exported from any district, any place. And for that, they have added one more aspect, para 9.12, which says Dak Niryat Kendras. As I told you, 122 post offices have been identified. The postmaster has been given the responsibility of looking at the customs angle. So this is something that at the ground level, I should be able to export goods. One example I would like to give you, one from south and one from north. Cooperative society from Madurai wants to export lungis using e-commerce methodology. An entrepreneur in Punjab wants to export wedding dresses, and those wedding dresses have to be costing, say, 30,000 rupees per parcel and directly going to Canada because there is Punjabi population in Canada. They are looking forward to this. So there are a number of products like this where there is a great potential to export using the e-commerce methodology. E-commerce methodology helps you in one aspect very clearly, that it reaches you directly to the customer. And I can give you small examples of the world. For example, Malaysia exports mangoes. Now, all of us know that Alfonso mangoes are the best mangoes available in the world. But what is our export of mangoes? $200 million. What is Thailand's export of mangoes? $800 million. Why? E-commerce system works well. So this is where the bankers come into picture. We will have to decide a system. We will have to work out a system where connectivity of payment through credit card, debit card, or other authorized payment methods have to be correlated with this. Government also has to work how to make the documentation simple. And then how to look at these e-commerce export hubs, how to reach them, how to reach the exporters, how to make sure that this works, how to expand the business only from port and airports to all districts of India. If we are successful in this, yes, it will work very, very well. That is something we must all understand. And there is a great potential for bankers to grow in this particular area. They should create these facility centers because it is primarily handled by the courier or the post office. So you need not go to the seaport or airport place. You can do it from your own district itself. And postmaster is the person responsible for getting custom clearances. If this is that reduces the cost tremendously because the courier costs are comparatively high. The post parcel costs are comparatively low. And every district has already establishment of post offices. Infrastructure is ready. Traditional business of the post is already closed. We are not sending any money orders. We are not writing any letters. So that infrastructure can be used for this particular purpose. And later, so this really grows into a big business in times to come. As I already earlier said, the estimated export under this category would be somewhere close to $250–300 billion. And that is something we should look forward to. A special chapter has been created for special chemicals, organisms, material, equipments, and technologies which are of dual use. So restrictions from where you will get the export license for export of these items, what kind of controls that are meant and required to be kept in terms of documentation is explained. A new chapter has been created for ease of doing business again. So this is what the policy in general covers. There are associated organizations, and if anyone wants to know, I have listed all the websites. So you can, whatever you want to check about import-export transactions, you can look out from these particular websites. Foreign trade policy and procedures, tariff and non-tariff barriers, anti-dumping, safeguard and countervailing duties, import of goods and services, RBI direction, import and export of goods and services, India's import-export data, then BIS standards, Customs Act, Customs Tariff Act, GST. Please remember, today the information is available. The problem is we do not want to go beyond what we do. So we need to expand. We should not limit ourselves to the desk work. We should look at as a concept in totality and see what best can be done. So in conclusion, FTP has no fixed duration. So you must be prepared for amendments. All bankers have to take district hubs and e-commerce very, very seriously, futuristic business, and enhancing and also looking at what all we call as MSME exporters, connecting them, helping them to grow. Also explaining them schemes like interest subvention scheme, etc. E-commerce, merchanting trade, and export through post. These are the three key areas for bankers to expand their business at district level. And I wish everybody should do that, because reason is very simple. One has to be passionate about this. We have to increase our global footprint. We have to expand our base. You'll not believe this. There are more than 100 countries where India's total export is less than $1 billion. So you can imagine the potential that is available. We have not been looking at the global market very seriously. Let us hope this policy gives us those opportunities and we practically start looking at it. And it's my habit. I'm a student of Zen Buddhism, so combination of Buddhism plus practices from Japan. And therefore, I like certain statements. All my practical, any presentation I make end with a thought. And today's thought is this. I never see what has been done. I only see what remains to be done. This is something we all need to look at very, very seriously, expand our business, and hopefully we should achieve that. We should really put our interest, because export should be our national interest. With the changes in technology, communication, development, etc., we cannot remain isolated from the world. And if we have to make our global presence felt, then trade has to increase. There is no other option. So my request to you, please look into this aspect very, very seriously. I would like to thank FEDI for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. And I hope what we've deliberated would be of help to you for furthering your business. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sir. Having said about the new approach of the foreign trade policy, that's the new approach to us from the incentive to the tax remissions. So also there is also a thought of a collaborative approach with the states, export hubs and all. And we know that when you move to a collaborative approach towards an export hubs in a district wise, definitely the focus will be on MSME. So the focus is always on MSME. So till date, there were in the previous policies before the instructions from the WTO and all, we were having several incentives like MEA, IS, SEIS, and several incentives were there. So in this regard, when we go for an export hubs at the district level, and when promoting an MSME, what the government has additionally to incentivize them, because one of the incentive now still having is the interest equalization benefit. So MSMEs across all MSMEs, irrespective of the 416 HS code eligibility, are eligible for claiming that interest equalization. So whether this interest equalization is also a part of an incentive, and what will be the status of it?
There are two options on this because the interest charged by different nations are not same. If you look at a country like Japan, the interest rate would be very, very small compared to a country like India. So there cannot be a uniform view whether interest subvention should continue. But interest subvention, at least for few years, will continue for a simple reason, is that the global footprint, particularly of MSME, for developing countries is not very large. So to bring them into the globalized system, to bring them into the value addition chain, to get the global value addition, GVC as we call them, get the parts manufactured in countries like this, wherever you have a better opportunity, wherever you have lesser labor cost and things like that. So in my opinion, there cannot be a uniform view on this particular aspect, and 99% the interest equalization scheme will continue.
Sir, right, sir. So again, you also touched upon that export promotion capital goods EPCG scheme. So which allows the exporters to import at the zero duty for their plant machinery or incentives. So that also
that is practically speaking, that is incentive.
Yes. So whether it will be retained,
some very interesting angle of that. And you tell me, if I import machinery and there is no duty chargeable,
yes,
under EPCG scheme,
yeah,
product is becoming cheaper for me, but ultimately it promotes the business of that person who is exporting the goods. Just think of, if I'm a person in UK and I'm exporting some machinery to you, normal circumstances, duty chargeable is 18%.
Yeah.
And when you take EPCG, duty chargeable is 0%. So ultimately my product is becoming cheaper.
Cheaper, and also we are encouraging the overseas exporter also.
Yes, yes. So that is why the scheme is continuing.
Yeah.
Because seriously, it is not being objected by others.
Yes, yes.
So it will continue for some time. But if you purely go by principle, that is not possible.
Sir, in the highlights in export promotion initiatives, the policy highlight also says about effective the internationalization of the rupee.
Yeah.
So what is, and it also mentioned about the special rupee escrow accounts, and we all know that for the last so many months, banks, papers, news, and there are everything in the special rupee escrow accounts and in the internationalization of the rupee. What's your thought on this, that side?
It's a very, very interesting issue. We would like to promote rupee as a currency. But you look at last 2 days newspapers, you'll have articles written on this. And I'll give you some statistical figures. Our export to Russia is close to between $3 to $4 billion. Our import from Russia is this year is $39 billion. Yeah. Now tell me, if I convert this in rupees, what will Russia do with the rupee balance in India? And there is a interesting thing that is coming up. Now they are looking forward that can we convert that into yuan? If we convert that into yuan, use that currency, avoiding dollar completely for transaction purpose, ultimately, where will you use yuan for buying the goods? So it will increase imports from China. So all said and done, unless until there is similar amount of trade happening between two countries, rupee invoicing cannot be that effective. That point has to be understood, whether we like it or we don't like it. Yes. And if somebody comes for Vostro account, the bank opens Vostro account, everything has been done. But if the business is small, let's say the whole business with that country is say $1 billion, then how much can I influence the rupee invoicing? Out of 447, $4 billion becomes rupee invoicing. Unless until we develop bilateral trade both ways, then only the currency can get that. Or you'll have to make your currency convertible so that I can buy and convert it into any other currency. If that is not happening, it will have limited success.
Yes, yes. So anyway, sir, it was a very encouraging and enlightening session from, especially from the bankers' perspective on the foreign trade policy, because we, for the last how many years, more than 5 to 6 years, we were always thinking about FTP 1520. So all on a sudden, we, as you said, there are 2-3 chapters were introduced, and a lot of changes are there. But anyway, it was only a starting, because we are also thinking that more amendments or more requirements will be added to it, because there is no sunset clause. So DGFT will be coming with more and more amendments or revisions or modifications to the policy. So anyway, your presentation and everything was a welcome step for it. So can I take some questions from the members? If someone of the participants have 1 or 2 questions, if any of the participant is having any questions specifically to the subject on FTP 2023, can raise your hands so that I can permit you to talk. Yeah, Atul. Atul, you can unmute and you can speak.
Yeah. Hello, Kasture sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, Srinivas sir. Sir, you mentioned during the presentation that for status holder, figures should be cumulative. Last 3 years, figures should be cumulative.
Yeah.
But this 1.25D of policy says for granting status and export performance would be necessary in all the 3 preceding financial years.
Correct.
So is that as per policy, it has to be
Yes,
in all 3?
yes. What it says that you should be a continuous exporter, it doesn't talk of the figure. Let's say in first year, your export is 10 crore. In the second year, your export is only 10 lakhs. And third year, your export is again 20 crores. So cumulatively, you meet the figure.
Okay.
Only condition is there should not be a year in between where you have not exported even 1 rupee worth of goods. So idea is to grant the status to continuous exporters, not one-time exporters.
Okay. So it is not necessary to have that threshold in all 3 years.
No, not at all. It's a cumulative. And not only 3 plus current year.
Correct, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, 3 plus current year proportionately.
Yeah.
Suppose we...
No, not even proportionately. Put together, I want that figure. That's it.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay. Yeah. Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have Mr. Murukeshan. You can also, if you can speak now, unmute and speak. Mr. Murukeshan, please unmute and you can ask your question.
No, sir, there is no question there. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Okay, then. So, thank you very much, sir, for participating in our monthly discussions series. And also, I, on behalf of the FEDE, thank each of the attendees who attended this session. And thank you very much once again on behalf of the FEDE, for all the participants as well as our great consultant, Kasture sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.